All right, thanks. So the last time I was here, I guess the focus was to talk about entrepreneurship, and that was great. And I talked about the values of entrepreneurship, and I talked about how to embark on that journey. And I think what I would like to focus on today is to talk about leadership, right? And not just any leadership, but the 21st century type of leadership. And I wish I actually had more time to give like a proper training and to give like some sort of like a online workshop about it, because I believe that the subject of leadership cannot be taught in one setting. It cannot be taught in one meeting, one Zoom call, or one seminar, right? The subject of leadership requires application. You need to learn, take it, and apply it, and then test it out, and then learn, take it again, and then apply it. And, it's a continuous cycle. So for me, leadership, I get excited when I'm talking about this because leadership has become, one of my dear passions. It's become, I always say it's one of is the love of my life, right? Because I have seen the impact that happens when people learn how to lead, especially when they learn how to lead very well, because I said this before, if you're ever going to build anything of great significance in this lifetime, you cannot do it alone. You need to do it with people. So, in other words, you need to surround yourself with smart, intelligent people. And if you're ever going to do anything that requires you building a team around smart people, you're going to need to learn how to lead. But first, how to lead yourself, right? Because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You need to pour into yourself, like I said, and let your cup run it over so you can begin to pour into the lives of the people around you. So you need to pour into yourself and then you can start pouring into others. So first, how to lead yourself, but more importantly as well, how to lead others as well. And, there's an old saying that goes that if you want to go far, you need to go together. But if you want to go fast, go alone, right? So what I say to people is that if you want speed when it comes to leadership, don't lead, because just go by yourself, because leadership takes time, leadership takes effort, and leadership sometimes takes sacrifice as well. I think, in fact, if you cannot effectively call yourself a leader if you're the only one in the journey. Think about it. You're the only one in the journey. How can you call yourself a leader? You may be leading yourself okay, but not until you start leading other people and people start following you because of who you are, and they follow you because they want to, and not just because they have to. That's when you can start calling yourself an effective leader, and then you can start building, your leadership skills and growing and becoming better. So for me, when I do leadership workshops, by the way, I train about leadership, in Ireland and the UK. And a lot of people say they want to be leaders, and I ask them, I'm like, so why do you want to be a leader? Because most people think it's about the title, they think it's about the position, they think it's about being in front of the pack, they think it's about control or power. I think the only reason, any one of us should want to become leader is because we want to add value to people's lives, right? And if we want to add value to people's life, we have to become valuable as individuals, and also we need to value people, because sometimes leadership is not easy. Leadership is also not fun sometimes, and leadership is also kind of lonely when you think about it. Once you embark on that journey, you start realizing that you need to isolate yourself for a certain period of time to pour into yourself, to feed your mind the right stuff, because you're going to need to go through a paradigm shift for that to happen. So, like I said, I love the subject of leadership. For me, it's like a noun, right? Leadership is, sorry, it's not a noun. It's a verb. It's action. It's doing. It's not static. It's dynamic. I always say leaders are trailblazers. They go where there's no path, and they leave a trail. So they pave the way for other people to follow. So I guess before I jump into the training, and what I want to do today is just talk about certain laws of leadership. I recently got a book by a guy called John C. Maxwell. If anyone on this call does not know John C. Maxwell and you're interested in leadership, I encourage you to start following him, get some of his books. He's written over 80 books, so he's one of my dear mentor. And I guess before I jump into it, let me just introduce myself real quick, for those of you who maybe were not on the last call and who don't know who I am. So I was born and raised in Nigeria, right? I was very opportune to school. I schooled in Nigeria, I schooled in the Netherlands, I schooled in Ireland, and also in America as well. And my professional background is software engineering. I've been a software engineer for about 7, 8 years, and I also own a couple of businesses. But what I always say to people is that my biggest goal in life is to make a global impact, right? is to do something that, before I leave this earth, I could put a stamp, and I can leave a legacy. And that's one of my biggest goals, and I aim to do this by doing what I'm doing right now, right? By sharing the knowledge, because a lot has been poured into my life over the years, and I feel like, it makes sense that I reciprocate and pour into other people's lives as well. So, I love to spark people's minds, and I love to inspire their hearts. And think about it, right? If even if I'm not able to do that, I'm not able to do it in a massive scale, but what if I could create a platform for those people by me speaking and people hearing me. We could create a ripple effect around the world, because my thing is, you don't have to reach masses, you just have to reach the people who can reach masses, right? So that's why I'm hoping that people take notes anytime I'm talking about things like this, and so that you can take what you have and go multiply it in your own places and in your own spaces as well, right? So let's jump straight into leadership. So today, what I want to do is talk about three laws of leadership. Like I said, John C. Maxwell wrote a book a while ago. It's called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Right? If you don't have that book, I encourage you to get that book ASAP, because it will change your life. It would change your paradigm. It would change the way you think and how you perceive the world from a leadership. You start seeing things from a leadership standpoint. Let me put it. This is someone that has been teaching leadership for 50 plus years. He's written more material on leadership than anyone in history. He has an organization that has trained millions and millions of leaders all around the world, and they're not stopping. They're continuing to grow. I attended a seminar recently from him in Birmingham in the United Kingdom, and I remember taking notes, and he was talking about how leaders learn how to develop their intuition so they can see before other people see, and leaders can also learn to develop their intuition so they can see further than other people see as well. It was an amazing seminar. I learned a lot from that. So what I'm going to share with you guys today, right, is inspired by John C. Maxwell, in combination with my own thoughts, my own ideas as well. Okay, so let's jump straight into it. So I'm going to talk about you know the law of the lid, from which is an extract from the book, right? And then I'm also going to talk about the law of process, and then I'm going to talk about the law of momentum. There are many other laws that are very, very important, but for me, on a personal level, these are the laws that I I live by on a regular basis. So it's very dear to me. It's very personal. So that's why I feel like it would come out natural if I share these laws with you, and then you can take it with you, and you can start seeing how you can start applying it in your life as well. Okay. So I think if we're ever going to survive in the business world, in the church world, in the corporate world, in the country, we're going to need to have to learn how to lead more effectively. And if we want to learn how to lead more effectively, we need to start learning these laws. And I want to just give you a few observations about these laws, right? These laws have consequences if you don't follow it, and if you're trying to become a leader, right? Let me explain. Let's take the law of gravity, for example, right? The law of gravity is a law. Everyone knows it, right? You don't have to believe it, right? No one can say, I don't really believe in the law of gravity. It's not based on your belief. It's there. It exists. There are consequences if you don't abide by the law of gravity. If you don't believe it, go to a rooftop and try to jump off that building, right? In a split second, you buy into the law of gravity, because that's what it is. And similarly, the laws that are in place for leadership are exactly the same. So, like, if you don't abide by these laws, there are consequences, right? Another observation I want to make about these laws is that they're not based on culture, they're not based on country, they're not based on gender, and they're not based on age. So they permeate through all culture. It doesn't matter which country you're in, they permeate through all gender. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're male, female. These laws apply to every single person from every single country. It doesn't matter where you are. And they also permeate through different communities as well. So, like, the business community, the corporate community, the academic community, the sports industry as well, the government community, and also the religious community. Leadership, these laws permeate through all these different communities, and and these laws are also recognized by other leaders. So when you really look at leaders who are in the pinnacle of their career, you can see that they live by these laws. If you study the laws and you watch them and you watch their actions and you see what they do, you can confirm that they're actually living by these laws as well. And these laws also stand the test of time. So they worked 100 centuries ago, right? They a century ago. They're working right now, and they're going to continue to work in the future. So the reason why I'm giving you guys these observations about these laws is that you need to understand that this is not something that is new. This is not something that even Frank is talking about. This is something that has been studied over time, that people have applied and they have seen results from, right? So the good news is these laws can be learned. Anyone, doesn't matter what your background is, where you come from, you can learn these laws. And if you follow these laws, people will follow you. Similarly, if you don't follow these laws, people will not follow you. Okay. So let's jump into the first law. Okay. The first law I want to talk about is a law of the lid, right? And the law of the lid states that everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything. And it's so it's saying that the lid of your leadership, let's say this is your leadership lid, right? And this is your organization, this is your business, this is your church, this is your government, whatever it is. And let's say this hand represents your leadership lid, right? Your organization or your business, your company, your church can never rise above your leadership lid. Does that make sense? Right? So you're here. If your leadership lid, let's say from a scale of 1 to 10, is a 4, your business cannot rise more than a 4, because the lid of the leader determines how far, or the size of the organization, of the company, of the church, of whatever it is that you're trying to lead. So that's what the law states. And you can raise your lid, right? You can raise your lid if you want to. And there are ways that, I'm going to give you guys through the course of this call that you can start applying into your life so you can start raising your lid. And have you ever noticed that when a company is acquired, right? When a company is acquired, or maybe they're going bankrupt and someone buys that company, or maybe there's a merger or something, have you always noticed that the first thing that people do, let's say company A buys company B, the first thing that they do is they fire the CEO, they fire the guy who has the leadership, right? They fire the person at the top, right? They don't really go ahead and fire all the people doing the little works, the employees. They fire the leadership. Why do they do that? Right? Because they understand that whoever that leader was, there's a cap, there's a lid, and that leader has not shown him or herself to be able to raise their lid. And because they haven't been able to raise their lid, that's why the organization is stuck at where they are. That's why the business and the company is stuck at where they are. So that's what they do. And the second thing they always do as well is to always retrain the people, right? When they acquire a new company, they want to retrain the people from scratch, right? They want to, especially the people that are client facing, customer facing, right? So the first thing they do is they fire the leadership. Always, almost happens. You can go back in history and check, what companies do after they acquire a new company that is not doing very well. And the second thing is they train the people. And this, you can apply this to anything that you're doing, even in the church community as well. You can train the ushers, you can train the people that are going to be interfacing with people that are walking in for the first time. And so that type of training is required. And so that's what the law of the lid is all about, right? So questions I want you to ask yourself as I'm talking about the law of the lid, is like questions like, what level are you on? Right? What level of the leadership lid are you on? So think about from a scale to 1 to 10 and give yourself a number and be honest with yourself. Are you a leadership, is your lid on a 4? Is it 5? Is it 6? Is it 7? Be honest with yourself. But if you really want to know what your leadership lid is, here's what I encourage you to do. Right? Look at those that are around you and actually ask them to rate your leadership level from a scale of 1 to 10. That's the way you can know, right? They're going to be completely honest. So you get them to rate your leadership. They can give you like a fair assessment on where your leadership lead is, and you can get an honest opinion. So you can start knowing that where you are, and then you can start figuring out how to raise your leadership lead and how to improve it, right? Another question you can ask yourself as I'm talking about the law of the lid is, how do you plan to grow your leadership lead? What's your strategy that you're going to put in place? How do you plan to become a better leader? First of all, studying these laws and studying successful people that are doing very well when it comes from a leadership standpoint, that can help, right? But you also need to be applying it. So when you learn something, you apply it to your church, you apply it to your business, you apply it to your company, you apply it to your organization, whatever it is you're trying to lead, you make sure the application is there. So that's, when you ask yourself that question, how do you plan to grow your leadership lead? Make sure you start applying everything that you start learning, because execution is what it's all about. Execution, like they say, is the name of the game, right? So those questions are vital. And, when you start asking yourself those questions, and you start challenging yourself, you start understanding, because you need to understand where you are so you can know how to get to the next level, right? So that's the law of the lead. So that's the first law from the book of the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. It's something that I live by on a regular basis in my business. I understand that everything rises and falls on me, right? On my leadership. And if I want my team to go far, to go further, I have to make sure that I go further, right? I have to raise my lid. And what happens is, let's say your leadership was a 4. If you then raise your leadership to like a 5, right? And by the way, it takes time to raise your leadership lid from 4 to a 5. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that you just happens because you started learning about leadership. It takes time to grow, right? So let's say you're after like 6 months or a year or however long it takes you, because it's relative and you shouldn't compare how long it takes you to grow yourself, right? You raise it to a 5 or to a 6. Now the people in your organization, your business, your company, they now have an opportunity, because someone has to fill that gap. Someone has to fill that spot. Now someone can raise their leadership lid to catch up to where you are. But remember, wherever your lid is where your people and your team and your organization and your company is ever going to reach, and not any higher. It won't go any higher. If you want it higher and you want to attract level 7, level 8, level 9 leaders, the only way to do that is to raise your leadership plate. So when you think about it, it's now putting the responsibility on you as an individual. It's no longer, the traditional form of leadership is, is like a boss. You're telling, you're dictating, but now you're looking internal. You're looking at yourself. You're looking at the mirror, and you're saying, okay, my leadership is reflecting my business, so I just have to make sure I improve myself on a continuous basis. So that's the law of the lid. That's the first law. The second law I want to talk about with you guys today is the law of process, right? Another is a third law in the book, in the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, is a third law. And the law of process states that leadership develops daily, not in a day, right? Leadership develops daily, not in a day. And, I think I gave this example the last day. When you look at our society today, right, it's been reduced to instant rice, instant noodle, instant instant oatmeal, and instant success, because everyone wants things to happen straight away, right? They're like, if it doesn't happen straight away, it means it's not going to happen. That's the mindset. That's how the new generation are kind of wired today. So we want to shift from that, right? Because that's not the way we want to work with anything in leadership, in anything else that we're doing, right? So we want to understand that anything worthwhile is uphill. And if you're ever going to go uphill on anything, right, it's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's not going to happen overnight, right? So that's the law of the process. And as like I said before, subjects of leadership cannot be learned in one seminar, in one event, in a Zoom call like this. You may gain the information, but then what you need to do is understand that it's going to take time for me to develop my leadership skills to become a better leader. So it requires application, right? And one thing I've noticed is that we overestimate an event like this, right? Like this Zoom call, or this conference. We overestimate it and say, oh, someone is going to be talking about leadership, so I'm going to learn. I'm going to take a lot of notes. And what we do is we underestimate the process, right? And I think we need to switch that around. We need to start focusing on the process and start falling in love with the process, because it's the process that is going to get us there, right? Because let's call it the event. The event encourages decisions, right? But the The process encourages development because you can grow. You can, because so when you switch your mindset, it's like a paradigm shift, right? You're not just thinking of one setting, one event, one this. You're thinking, okay, the process, and you understand that the process would encourage development. The event will like motivates people, right? You go to an event, a leadership seminar, a leadership conference, and you get motivated, you get excited because you've attained new information. That's what the event does. But the process, the reason why the process is there is that it's going to mature you. So the process matures people, right? Similarly, just like how the event is like is a calendar thing in the sense that it's something that you put in the calendar. The process is a culture thing, right? If that makes sense, because for you to become an effective leader and to lead people, you need to create a type of culture that fosters growth. You need to create a type of culture that enables other people to win as well, right? So the event is great. It's good. You can learn, you can grow. But at the end of the day, the process is what changes people. The process is what you need to focus on. The event will be easy, but the process is quite difficult, right? And remember that you can't change overnight. My mentor used to say this to me. He's like, Frank, you can't change your life overnight, but here's what you can do. You can change the direction of your life in a split second, right? And all you have to do is just change it by 1 degree. You don't have to make a dramatic shift by going 180 degrees or 90 degrees. You just have to change it by 1 degree, right? Every day, 1 degree, 1 degree. And if you do that continuously, you would end up in a completely different path than where you were supposed to end up before, right? So you cannot change your life overnight, but you can change the direction of your life in a split second. And all it takes is a decision. You make a decision and you can change the direction of your life, right? And when you make a decision to become a leader, and you start understanding that the process is what it's all about, you've just changed the direction. And you may not see the results overnight, but over time, as time goes on, you will start seeing the results as long as you're consistent with it. Too many times we try to microwave leaders, right? I think we need to stop trying to microwave. Like, think about a popcorn. You put a popcorn in the microwave, and it starts to pop. People are like, "Oh, I got a leader, and I found a leader." It doesn't really work that way. You want to crock pile leaders and not microwave leaders. So it's again, it's a mindset shift to understand the difference. And I honestly think the secret of our success is found in our daily habits, your daily method of operation. Ask yourself today and be honest with yourself. What is your daily method of operation? Right? What do you do on a regular basis? Do you wake up in the morning? You obviously probably have a job, or maybe you have a business, or maybe you have a church. You're a pastor. You want to, you obviously you have it's everything you're doing is coming from a good place. But are you developing certain habits that is going to raise your leadership lid on a regular basis, on a daily basis, so that you can grow into the right type of leader? Because remember, everything rises and falls on you, on your leadership. All right. So that's the law of the process. So I've talked about the law of the lid, right? I've talked about the law of the process. And the third law I would love to share with you guys is the law of momentum. The law of momentum is very dear to me as well. I get excited about this because it is, when I heard about it for the first time, I didn't know that I was already using it in my life, but it was subconscious, it was unconscious. I had no idea. So when I read that it was a law and people have been using this for a long time, it resonated with me like so much. And I felt like, you know what, I need to share this with my team, and I need to share this with the world as well. So what is the law of momentum? The law of momentum states that momentum is a leader's best friend, right? And a formula that I love to share with you guys, when you think of momentum, even it's when you think back to, school days when, I think it's physics when you're being taught what momentum is. It's mass times velocity, right? Momentum is mass times velocity. So in your business, whatever that mass is, which could be a lot more sales, right? A lot more, if it's your company, a lot more sales business, a lot more customers, or, whatever it is that you're trying to lead, mass times velocity. So you increase the mass and you increase your velocity. Velocity is like speed, right? So you want to compress time and increase the volume, compress time and increase the volume. That's how you create momentum, So think about it from that standpoint. And from a leadership standpoint, many times, you know, I always say to people that many times the difference between winning and losing in business or in your company is the momentum that you create, is the speed at which you implement and you execute. And not only that, it's also how you strategies that you put into place to grow your mass, to grow your volume of whatever it is that great raises your revenue, if it's in business, or to make impact in people's life, if it's, if it's in church, or if it's in government, or whatever it is. So it's you, it comes down to momentum at the end of the day. That's what I'm trying to say. So momentum is it's a leader's best friend. Momentum also is a great exaggerator. Okay, let me explain. So with momentum, leaders look better than they actually are, right? Without momentum, leaders actually look worse than they actually are. Right. So let's say in your team, let's say you're running a company or a business, you walk into the boardroom one day, and before you even speak, because there's so much momentum already in place, and let's say you're getting a lot of sales, a lot of customers, business is booming, everyone feels good about themselves. When the leader walks into the room, without him even saying everything, everyone is just admiring him or admiring her, right? Because they're like, you know, um, you know, this is great. He's so great. He doesn't even have to say much. People are just like, yes, go on. We're excited because there's momentum, right? So momentum exaggerates so many things, and the opposite is actually the same. And even if think about it, in the church community as well, if you're a pastor, you go to the pulpit, and you tell your congregation to open their Bibles to a certain passage, and people are just like, oh wow, he's great, or she's great. I'm excited to be here. But the truth is that there's momentum happening. People are excited. People are happy to be there. New people are coming into church every single Sunday, and whatever the case is that you define as momentum for you. So momentum exaggerates so many things, and that's what I'm trying to say as well. So momentum also makes followers look very good. So it's not just from a leadership standpoint, it's also from a follower standpoint as well. And when you think about it, right, think about Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt, when he's about to run, and he's the fastest man in the world, right? When he gets on the races, all the people that are racing against him, think about this. When they are racing against their friends, let's say before they race against Usain Bolt, when they're racing against their friends, right? They feel more confidence. They put in the work, and they don't really put in as much work as they should, right? But when they're racing against Usain Bolt, knowing that he's the fastest guy in the world, what do? They have to put in so much effort. They're not just racing with him anymore. They're racing with time. They're trying to compete on a much higher level. So Usain Bolt is raising that the level of that race. He's raising it. He's raising the intensity of that race, and the followers, and other people, they're just like, they become better because they're constantly racing with people like Usain Bolt, right? Just to give you an example. So I also think the momentum is a great problem solver, right? I always say, like, when managers and other people are focusing on solving problems, leaders are focusing on creating momentum, right? Let me explain. So let's say you take a train, right? Let's say a train is moving on the tracks on 50 kilometers per hour. It's going, so it's got more momentum behind it, right? It's going really fast. If you put a very thick 5 foot concrete wall in front of that train, because that train has momentum, that train is going to smash through it, right? It's just going to keep going, right? It's going to smash through it and keep going, right? But let's look another example. If that train is stopped dead on the tracks, it's not moving, and you put a very, very tiny inch, like a 1 inch concrete block in front of that train cannot even get started, right? It can't even move, right? Because there's no momentum behind it. So, in other words, in your business, in your company, in your church, whatever it is that you're trying to lead, when there is a problem, right? When there's a big problem, right? If you have momentum, you would smash through that problem. It would almost feel like that problem does not exist at all. But if you have no momentum in your business, in your company, in your church, in whatever organization you're leading, a tiny problem that happens gets exaggerated, right? A tiny problem cannot even get you started. everyone starts talking about the problem. Everyone starts focusing on the problem. A tiny problem that was not supposed to be a problem, becomes a huge problem in the organization. So that's what momentum really does. It's so, so important. And I wish I had more time to really go into it and really dissect more of what momentum is all about. And it's a law that I know that works in business. It's worked for me on a personal level. I've seen it work in many other people's lives as well. So the key thing here is you just want to focus on creating momentum and less on solving any problems, because momentum is a leader's best friend. So the question now is, how do you create momentum, right? How do you increase momentum in your business, in your organization, in whatever it is that you're leading? Well, what you want to do is you want to understand the value of it, right? So I've talked about momentum. I've talked about the values of it, in the last 10 minutes. So you can kind of see now that actually, this is valuable. So when you understand that momentum is valuable, then you want to start putting things in place, excuse me, on how to create that momentum, right? And one of the examples I love to give is when you think about, I love basketball, by the way, for those of you who don't know. I coach basketball. I play basketball. I'm a fanatic on basketball. I watch basketball as well. And when I see happens a lot of the time, and let's say I'm watching a game, right, an NBA game, when a team is having a lot of momentum, so they're scoring every basket, it just feels like every time they shoot the ball, it's going in, right? When that is happening all the time, what does the coach do? Have you noticed that the coach always calls a timeout? Right? The coaches have understood this for a very, very long time, and this also permeates in any sports out there. They call a timeout if the reason why they do that is because they want to stop the momentum that the other team is having. Because if they don't call the timeout at that point, that momentum is going to carry them through, the other team through, and they're probably going to win that game. Right. So coaches have understood this for a long time. Leaders in businesses and companies understand this for a very long time. So number one is understand the value of momentum, right? The second thing is you want to understand, or rather figure out, what the motivating factor is in from your people, from your team, from your organization. What motivates them? Is it more time with their family? Is it more income? Whatever it is that motivates people, you can ask them questions. By the way, good leaders ask the questions to find out what motivates their team and their people and their organization. Great leaders, right, don't ask those questions directly. They can have conversations with you, and they can figure out, you know, indirectly, what really motivates you, right? So you want to ask your team and find out what is the motivating factor. If you know what the motivating factor is within your team and your organization, you know how to create momentum. And the way you do that is you need to listen, you need to learn, and you need to observe your team, observe the organization. And when you listen and learn and lead, and you listen and you learn and you lead continuously, then now you know how to lead your team and lead your organization a lot better, because you're going to know what motivates them, and you're going to know how to create that momentum. And I guess if you look at it from the other side as well, you want to figure out what the demotivating factors are in your business, in your company, in your church, and you want to remove those factors, right? Whatever it is that's demotivating people, you want to get rid of it like yesterday, right? And another thing you want to do is schedule an event, or a gathering to celebrate every single win, right? That also helps in fueling the momentum. When people get excited, people feel like there's lots of production happening, lots of productivity, and then you also want to promote people, right? You want to recognize the people who are moving the ball forward. You want to recognize people that are making an impact, making a change, going the extra mile. When you keep recognizing that, by the way, can be a motivating factor for people, because someone else can see that and they can say, oh, wow, she got recognized for that. I want to get recognized like that. So I'm going to try to do exactly what she did. Even sometimes they want to do more, right? So understand that you need to recognize people that are moving the ball forward in your organization. You want to schedule time for celebrations, for every single victory, for every single win. And when you're celebrating for every single victory, as a leader, you also want to give direction of what the next steps are, right? You want to give direction at the celebration time and say, okay, this is great, but here's where we need to go. this is what we need to do. Here's the next level that we can take our business or our company or our church or organization to as well, right? And you want to practice character leadership as well. So you want to lead with enthusiasm and hope, even when you don't feel like it, even when the future doesn't seem like it's bright. You want to also lead from a hope standpoint, right? And I remember when I started public speaking a few years ago, there was almost no crowd, right? I was speaking to two people sometimes. Sometimes I was speaking to four people. If I'm giving training, sometimes it's only two people that come in, right? And giving a formal presentation, sometimes it's 10 people. So I started small, and everyone starts small. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a lot of people that they have a mindset of, I'm going to, I hope I get the crowd first before I put in all my efforts and speak better, right? They have that mindset of get the results first before I take action, right? But when I say what I mean by practicing character leadership is that even though you don't have the crowd yet, you want to still put in all the effort. If you're speaking to one person, give it everything that you've got. That's the true test of your character. Even if it's two people, if it's three people, don't wait till you have the massive crowd, from a public speaking standpoint before you start putting all your effort. That's not character, right? Character is giving your best every single time, every single step in the journey, right? Even if there's one person, two people, or more, you can take it from there. So in a nutshell, that is the law of momentum, right? The law of momentum states that, you know, momentum is a leader's best friend. And for the leaders who understand momentum, they can learn to work with momentum, and momentum can help you solve most of the problems that you have in your team and in your organization, right? So, talked about the law of the lid, talked about the law of process, and talked about the law of momentum. And, I just want to kind of give a call to action to everyone on this call, right? I encourage you to get the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, right? If you're interested in leadership, if it sparks your mind at all, if it's something that you've thought about or something you want to get involved with, by the way, I encourage everyone to get involved with leadership, right? Because you'll find that it's going to help you in every single area of your life, right? Not just in your business, not just in your company, not just in your church. Leadership helps you in every because leadership is who you are. It's a skill, yes, but it's your becoming. It's who you become. It's the mindset that you get, the thinking shifts. You start thinking differently. You see everything from a general perspective. You see things from a leadership perspective. It's like going through a complete paradigm shift. You're shifting your mind, shifting your emotions. You're learning how to manage yourself, and it's no longer about being very smart or very intelligent like IQ. Today, it's more about emotional intelligence. It's more about your EQ, and leaders need to learn how to do, how to manage their emotions effectively, So, the call to action, like I said, I encourage you to get that book if you don't have it. And what you want to do as the leader, right? When you get that book, you want to read it and you want to study it because you cannot pour from an empty cup, right? So you read it, you study it, you probably want to reread it again and study it again and start applying it in your lives. And then here's the next step. What you can do is you want to put that book in every of your leaders' hands. So look at your leaders today. Look at the people that you're working with, right? You want to put it in each of those leaders' hands so they can read it as well. And it could be in your church, it could be in your business, and you want to schedule like a leadership conference over the weekend or something where you get people involved, all the leaders in your business, in your team, in your church, get everyone involved and train about the 21 laws of leadership. And you can take it one law at a time. You can start with one law per week. Maybe it's you want to do this once per month. Start with one law and start training and start training. And before you know it, you can create a ripple effect in your organization where people now learning how to become better leaders. And when they learn how to become leaders, they learn how to lead other people better, and they train other people. And when they train other people step up. So everyone's leadership lid starts going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher until eventually, it gets to a level where all of the leaders in that organization or wherever they are are on a high leadership level and you can see what's going to happen to your business. Imagine what would happen to your business, your organization. Imagine what would happen to your church if that was to happen, where everyone, every leader was to raise their leadership lid. Imagine the impacts that you would have. It would create a complete ripple effect in your organization and also all around the world if everyone was doing this, right? So that's why I'm encouraging people to get that book and do those things that I just laid out there. So that's the call to action. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up there. That's really what I wanted to share with you guys today. So those laws, like I said, there are many other laws, but those laws are really close to me. They're very dear to me, and I try to live by them every single day in my life, in my business, and anything that I put my hands on. I always try to become a better leader. So I try to raise my lid. I try to create momentum, and I understand the process of leadership is going to take a lot of time, and I am in no rush. Patience is key, like they say. Patience is not just the ability to wait, it's your attitude that you have within the waiting period. So with that said, I'm going to hand it over to you now, Pastor Glory.